All right, according to this, we are live. So hopefully we've got the live stream happening on our website, and we've also got it running through our social channels. I was not responsible for setting this up, so I'm just hoping that it is working okay. Good morning, Lance. How are you this morning?
It's quite hard to be live and check at the same time, right? So,
very hard.
No, going great. And for the people that care, it matters. This is my first live stream, so very exciting.
It is exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'd love to say this was my first live stream as well, but no, this is not my first rodeo. For those of you who know me, you know that during the COVID times, I started a little gin business, and we would go live every single week drinking gin. So that was amusing. So anyway, here we are. We're live. The purpose of this call has been a chance for people to ask some questions if they had any burning questions following our AI summer series. So I'm going to pop into the chat. If you do have any burning questions, here's a link that you can jump in and ask some questions if you would like to. We will keep an eye on that. Hopefully that's all showing up.
Yep.
So we'll keep an eye on the chat for those questions. Please jump in there. I have to admit that was supposed to be live for the past week, and we found out yesterday that it hadn't been live, so people couldn't submit their questions. So if you're one of those people, jump in and submit your question now. But whilst we're getting those questions come through, Lance, let's just perhaps debrief the AI summer series. For our listeners, if you haven't joined the AI summer series, well, the news is not great for you, because today, as of this live stream, the free access to that has ended. However, if you are feeling a sense of FOMO, you can purchase access to the recordings for the very small sum of $97. And all the proceeds go to Rare Diseases New Zealand, who represent 300,000 New Zealanders with rare diseases. So it's a very good cause that the proceeds are going to. Yeah. Lance, what was your takeaways from the summer series?
Well, for me, it kind of, this started on our own journey of curiosity. And, for me, it feels like we've hit a point of inflection where it's just sort of AI's taken that next step. And as we've delved down and had a look, and it's like an onion, isn't it? You just keep on peeling back the layers, and there's just more and more to discover. And overall, in a big sense, I love it.
Oh, Lance is on hotel.
That's been part of the AI series.
Sorry, Lance, we lost you for just a second there.
Is that me, technical issues?
Yeah. Well, I said hotel internet, right? That's the joy of live.
It's not even a hotel. It's Airbnb internet. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I love the peeling back the layers. I have to say for myself, obviously, because I interviewed him, but voice AI, I just love where that's going and the applications of what can be done with it. And, as you start going down that journey, I just can't help but have moments of, it could be used for this. Here's a great business use case for this. And that's just what I love about the whole journey. It just gets your brain going and thinking about, how you could leverage AI across your business, just to improve your outputs, improve customer service, CX, all that sort of stuff. So I guess the funnest part for me was going on the journey with you, Sarah, and diving deep into everything. Yeah, it's good.
Totally. And I'd love to hear from those of you who are watching the live stream. Drop your comments in the chat. We'd love to hear from you guys. What were your largest or biggest takeaways out of the AI Summer Series? I think for me, what I was so enamored by all of our speakers. I was so very thankful for their generosity of sharing their wisdom and their experiences around AI. And I think every time I sat and listened, for those of you who've watched me interviewing, you can probably see I'm just like hanging off their every word. I'm fascinated by what they're saying. That you got the edited version. All of those interviews ran a lot longer than what you all got, because we made a promise to you that the interviews would be between 20 and 30 minutes. And I tell you what, we spent a lot of time editing those videos to get them to that promised 20 to 30 minute window. But there was just so much goodness. And I think for me, one, I was incredibly proud to see how New Zealand is responding to AI for a start. I thought that was really cool. And I loved that we were able to get such a great cross-section of guests. So we had contribution from all around the world, quite literally. And being able to contrast how New Zealand is responding to AI in contrast to what is happening in other parts of the globe was really super interesting. Like I've had people ask me, can you pick a favorite interview of, from the series? No, I cannot. I loved all of them. I thought they were all amazing, and for very different reasons as well. Some of them were incredibly practical in their application. Some of them got us to consider many things. You will have seen that the interview I did with Martina Dolishal on ethics we actually posted that almost in its entirety in 3 parts. So we cheated totally. That was how we got away with 20 minutes. But yeah.
We weren't being lazy on editing, right? The content was just great, Sarah. So we had to do that. Yep.
Exactly. There was just so much richness in that conversation, and such an important conversation as well to be had. But I think the thing that probably grabs me the most at the moment, or strikes me the most at the moment, is, Lance, that was just January and February that we were recording those interviews, like a month ago. And the world has changed so considerably in terms of the landscape of AI already. And it's only been a month. And so, I'd love, what's your hot take, Lance, on where this is heading? Like, have we seen the majority of transformation, or what do you think? Is there more to come?
You'd be a brave person to take the extreme view on either one of those. I think I'm going to take the middle road, Sarah. I'm going to take the middle road. I think we're just going to keep on, and that's the exciting part of this journey, is you just don't know what's around the corner and what's coming next, and the change is happening so fast. So I personally don't think it's going to slow down. I think it's either going to stay at similar pace, and obviously there's going to be big wins that just pop up that just blow us away. Because when you really think about it, right, it was only not that long ago, well, I know for me personally, that I was sat down and showing Chat GPT for the first time, and I thought it was like a Matrix moment where I thought my reality has just changed. And if I look back then, it was the type of thing where you'd put into a prompt and ask it, a question, and you used it like a search tool. And we've just come so far from then, and that wasn't that long ago. So I don't know what's going to be in the future, but I'm excited to be there and be open to learn about it and see how we can apply that to business, and be ready for the change. So what's your take on it, Sarah? I mean, what do you think is going to be happening? Is there something you can see from the trends you think is going to be popping up? Throwing you a hot potato here.
Yeah, you are. Because I think deeply about this often. And the reason I think deeply is I think since doing the summer series, and as Lance said right at the beginning of the interview, the reason we did this was because we had intense curiosity. We were getting asked questions from people that we didn't have the answers to. So we were like, well, let's go find some people who do know the answers to these questions, which is what we did. And I think through that journey of talking to people, deciding on who we were going to interview, like all of those things that had to take place for the summer series to come together, I think I feel like I got an MBA in a lot of in a lot of regards. But I think the thing that's really struck me since the summer series is just how fast the world has changed. So since the summer series dropped, and we had finished recording by this stage, so it will be in a series coming to you in the future that we cover some of these things. There was 2 really massive model releases, one from Anthropic with Claude, with their new release, and then ChatGPT also dropped a release within 20 minutes, right? So 2 really big AI models or AI labs that created huge changes, and we've seen more follow since then. And the changes are largely in the user interface, if we want to summarize it, because those changes have meant that now things like vibe coding, and if that's a term that you're not familiar with, we can go a little deeper into that. But things like vibe coding now become a lot more accessible to people because the user interface and the reasoning capabilities of these LLMs is just advancing at such a state. And, if you want an example of this, I think there's no greater example than from Anthropic, and that is that they actually use Claude Code to create Claude Cowork. And so that was in itself just a massive leap forward from the LLM side. I think we might have lost Lance again. I think his internet's a bit buggy. So it might be just me for the moment. Let's see whether I can. Oh, here we go. He's gone. The joy of live stream. This is why we don't do live stream, people, because there's all this dodgy. Lance and I are never in the same place. And so there's all this dodgy internet stuff. This is why we don't do live stream. Anyway, if you've got a question,
drop it
in. Yes,
you're
back now. Yay, you're back. Because, of course, Lance, and realize that we can laugh about this, but when you got stuck, it paused you on the most hilarious facial thing you've ever seen.
It's my biggest fear.
Exactly. So it's the version of, if I had been paused, I would have definitely had a double chin. So yeah. Well, hi Sabrina Tika. Nice to have you here. Sabrina, one of our guest speakers who I interviewed, is here on the call. So I'm glad that you saw us live, Sabrina, and that you've been able to jump on. We're just recapping the summer series and all the great stuff. So Sabrina, drop your I don't know, your top takeaway into the chat. We'd love to hear it. Oh, Holly is here as well. Hello, Holly. Also on our interview panel. I had some lovely words come through, Holly, from a couple of people saying how much they enjoyed your interview and your excellent style. So there you go. Compliment for you first thing in the morning. Darylyn. Let's see. Can I pop this up so then everyone can see? Darylyn's comment. The experts talked about things I had thought about but not had any concrete examples of what AI looks like in action. Great practical examples of how action can be taken and experimentation can actually be done. Yes. Love that you wrap the series up with ethics and broader questions. The could versus should was a good checking phrase for me. Yes. I think this is becoming so critical with what is happening in the frontier AI companies in the US. Totally. And, you know, I totally agree with you, Darren. And I think, you know, it feels like the power has been handed over. And I felt like when we talked with Martina, she was showing us perhaps a pathway that we could take a stance against, you know, when she said, the phrase that struck me in her interview was, we need to design our own AI models, or words to that effect. That wasn't a direct quote. But yeah, we need to design our own AI models, or insist on an AI model that works for us and for humans in general, right? So yeah, totally. I'm glad that you got some really practical examples, Darren. Thanks for the comment. Sabrina, I learned so much and was blown away with the differences depending on the industry. Yeah, and Lance, maybe you can talk to that, because I loved how you got to really deep dive into such a practical example in an actual industry. And I think one that nobody really knew was happening, right?
Well, the interesting part is you could have actually interacted with Voice AI and not even known it. That's the cool part about it. And actually, you're talking about, you know, ethics and interacting with people. The first question I get when we're setting up an inbound Voice AI for a receptionist is the owner's talking about, when the Voice AI answers, should it tell everyone that it's Voice AI? And I just think that's such a good question. And then the feedback we get from the clients using it is, oh, look, don't let the Voice AI talk too much. Just get it to answer, and then I can talk to it type thing. So, you know, the customer wants it compressed. The business owner's, you know, view is, you know, should I let them know? I don't want to upset my customers. So, you know, that whole Voice AI part, and you can imagine that in the journey through the Burger King drive-through, if they added the Voice AI, introducing themselves, hi, I'm Voice AI, my name's, you know, it just would have made that whole experience too long maybe. So they didn't do that, and it made I experienced it, I drove through, I didn't even know, we were sitting in the car with my wife and the kids at the time, and I was going, I think this is Voice AI. My wife's going, no, it's too good, I don't think it is, and we were having this conversation about it back and forth. So, you know, it blew me away, some of the little insights that Stephen shared around what was happening in the backgrounds when they were launching it, and you know, what customers were thinking as they were driving through, because he was standing in the drive-through, right, once they'd used it, on the other side, asking them how their experience was. So just so cool to be able to interview and talk to someone that was that close to, you know, an AI, use of AI in business being deployed. Yeah, had so much fun with that interview.
Yeah, I could tell. All right. Okay. Here's some questions that we've had come through. Let's see whether we can quick fire through some of these. Curious to know what you feel the current training needs for small to medium businesses are, and how it has evolved in the last 12 months. Oh, that is such a good question. Lance, do you want to kick this one off?
Yeah. So I think the really interesting part is around embracing AI, because probably, you know, there is extremes. There's smaller business that's really involved in it. And I guess if I say smaller business, I'm talking, you know, probably teams of up to 10 or 15 people type stuff. They probably don't have an IT person in the business, that sort of thing. Is probably a little bit of head in the sand, where it's quite funny. You get the same story every business owner you speak to, where the owner goes, oh yeah, I've got ChatGPT and I use it for this, but none of my team does. You know, we don't have AI in the business. And then you go around and you talk to some of the team members and they go, oh yeah, I use my own ChatGPT and I use it for cleaning up emails. And, you know, suddenly you realize there's team members using their own ChatGPT licenses or Gemini or Claude or whatever in the business. And I think what it could do, the downside of that is obviously control of data. The other side is, how do you manage your brand of voice, where each person's individual chats are going to talk in their own language. So how do you keep the brand of voice at heart, allow individuals to have their own voice and use AI to leverage it? I don't think we've solved that at a small business level. And the business owners at the moment have just kind of got their heads in the sand going, oh, no, it's not being used, but it is. So I think because they don't have that IT infrastructure where they can, easily understand and see what's going on like larger companies. So that's my take. Yeah. Do you have a take as well, Sarah, on that one?
Well, as you know, I totally have a take, and I will be talking
on anything. Yeah.
I always have a take. You know that, Lance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will be talking a little bit later and offering an invitation to people around this because it is a growing problem, and my concern here is that the gap is getting larger and larger at a much more rapid rate. And I probably wouldn't have been saying this even in January, but I really feel like the gap is getting larger and larger. And I think, as Lance just talked about, this shadow AI concept. So shadow AI is, AI happening in the dark, in the shadows of a business, and business owners saying, no, we're not using AI, when in actual fact, a lot of their IP, even some of their, sensitive data that they hold on to could be going on a, free version of AI platform. And, there could be some, risks of data leakage or exposure, those sorts of things. So, that's a growing concern, and that was probably the starting place for me. But I think as well, what I've seen, and certainly these interviews have helped me to perhaps reinforce, and other conversations that I've been having in and around the interviews, is that the power that will come with organizations having a baseline of understanding about AI, so then they can start to utilize this. And, Lance and I have been, using AI quite extensively within our business. I'll show you some examples of some things a little bit later on, and on the live stream. But we've been playing around a lot, and Lance and I were having a meeting the other day. Both of us were laughing because we both had LLMs working in the background doing deep research for us whilst we were having a meeting.
Yeah.
So like we just had totally leveraged our time, and we were kind of laughing about it because we were both like sheepishly admitting, oh, actually, while I'm here, one of my LLMs is, one of my AI platforms is doing some deep research for me. And yeah, it's certainly, so I think small to medium-sized businesses, my advice to small to medium-sized businesses is get ahead of the curve. That's what I think. Like if you are starting to look at ways and starting to investigate use cases, and Sabrina might want to chime in on this because a large part of her interview was, this is what Sabrina does. So, get ahead of the curve and make sure that you're getting a foundation, a foundational knowledge available. Oh, Holly's chimed in as well. Thank you, Holly. To be able to start to investigate what's possible for us with AI. I think that's the kind of the starting place. Okay, let's see. Can I bring these two up? Holly, international evidence. Denmark invested early in digitization and is supporting AI framework. Yes, strengthening productivity. 1.2% productivity uplift over the last 5 years to AI. And if you haven't seen Holly's interview, she talked about how she had looked at some comparable countries to New Zealand. And Holly's interview was one where, Holly, I'd love to release that full version of it, because we had just the most hilarious conversation and Holly didn't hold back. So it was brilliant. But yeah, Ireland using targeted incentives, yes. And then there's another piece to it. Hang on, let's just bring that part up. 17.7%. Is that Singapore? Singapore embedded AI apprenticeships and industry partnerships in a national strategy. Singapore's always ahead of the curve, aren't they? Its digital economy now contributes about 17.7% of GDP, and leading AI adopters there are credited with potentially adding GDP growth of approximately 3%. That's amazing. Thank you for those stats, Holly. Far out. That's so cool.
Those stats are so important as well, Sarah. I mean, New Zealand's got some of the lowest productivity, from what I understand, in the OECD, and industry close to my heart, building construction in New Zealand is the worst productivity-wise. And some of that's because of the market and how it's made up and how we're a small country in scale and the like. So I think AI is going to play a massive role. So it's good to see those stats coming through globally, the impact they're having. I think they can have a bigger impact here in New Zealand than most other countries.
One more piece from Holly. Case studies show potential. In New Zealand, cut flight rebookings. You just don't want to put a full stop after that flight, right? Which is the case at the moment. But in New Zealand, cut flight rebooking times, we'll spin this all, by 50%. And Spark reduced churn by 20 to 30% through AI-driven service improvements. Wow, those are pretty impressive stats. That's amazing. Thank you, Holly. Sorry, I'm laughing at some of Holly's comments now. I have a tendency to do this. I read the comments, laugh to myself, and don't show them on the screen.
Don't show what you're reading out.
Yeah. Okay, so Sabrina's chiming in saying, for small businesses, I'm building workflow documentation and storing it into knowledge base so then it becomes an active procedure manual. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important, Sarah, to help a business scale from, the owner being the center of the business to the information coming out of the owner's head being centralized. So, yeah, it's great to see. There's good work going on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I hope that's answered the question. Small to medium-sized businesses. My view, certainly, as a L&D person, is that you need to have some level of foundational knowledge, so then you can be assured that everybody is on a level playing field. Of course, you're going to get people that are going to take that knowledge and absolutely run with it. And then you're going to get people, just as the normal bell curve would show, that are slower to adopt to AI, but they're thinking about it. And then you'll get people that are really kind of resistant, but they'll be the smaller part. And I think if you're arming people first and foremost with the foundational basis of how to use AI in a ethical and safe manner, then you're going to see and reap the benefits, I think. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's that one. We can say that one's answered. Okay, Lance, what is your favorite LLM to use? Everyone else, pop it in the chat. What are you using?
I'm not sure if it's a favorite because I'm open to new favorites, to be honest. And and I was an early adopter of ChatGPT, and that's because in our house we were. So my wife calls it Chatty. So kind of in my head, an LLM is Chatty or ChatGPT, if you know what I mean. I've got to reprogram myself. But I've got to say, I love Google's Notebook LM for certain things. So taking big chunks of data. There was a case I had where at our own property, we had another bit of land that was nearby, and we had a surveyor do this like 50-page document. And I was trying to go through it with my wife and explain, hey, this is what all this means. And she goes, I'm lost. So I put it into Notebook LM and said, hey, make a podcast from this. 12 minutes later, there was a podcast made of two people talking through this document, explaining everything in simple language. I think it was about 8-minute recording it made. And my wife at the end went, okay, I fully understand everything. And so I think I've got favorites for different things. Sarah's sort of influenced me in the background towards Claude Claude for some things as well, Claude Code and the like. So, but my general everyday Toyota Camry of LLMs is ChatGPT.
Yeah. I see there's some. So Sabrina's saying Claude, and she's saying Notebook LM as well. I must admit, I was a very early adopter of ChatGPT when it first came out, and spent quite a bit of time playing with it. And have spent the past 2, coming up 3 years training it in my voice and everything like that. And I felt like we had got it to a really great place. But just through probably the last couple of months and my foray into vibe coding, I have switched pretty much, I'd say 80% of the time I'm on Claude now. I think Claude writes in a nicer style as well than ChatGPT. And, if you are sitting there going, I am so sick and tired of my LLM spitting out AI slop and I can't work my way around it despite, it's ignoring my instructions or whatever. Claude's AI slop is more refined than ChatGPT's AI slop because people aren't necessarily using Claude. Although I have to say, since all this recent debacle with Claude and the US Defense Force and everything like that, Claude has been racking up users and ChatGPT has been losing them to the tune of, I think I heard a stat, which was 1 million new users in a week left ChatGPT and went to Claude. So, and I find that super interesting. This was after Claude lost the contract with the Defense Force, and, that they lost it because they said to the Defense Force, we're not going to allow you to have the access that you're asking for. And ChatGPT or OpenAI, they came in at the last minute and said, oh, we'll do it for you. And, I think the public have spoken with their feet, essentially, and they've left OpenAI or ChatGPT and moved over to Claude. So I think that's really interesting. As far as like the models go, though, as I said earlier in the call, Claude released their new version, and within 20 minutes, Anthropic, Claude, released their new version of Claude. And 20 minutes later, OpenAI had released their new version of ChatGPT. And so, like those things are still kind of neck and neck. There's still a very massive race going on. But I also think that, in my opinion, I just think Claude has perhaps got a little bit of an edge on the reasoning capabilities. And that's why I tend to use Claude. I mean, I really like Claude Code, so I use it for that reason. However, I will say that recently I have been working in Perplexity a bit, and I've been using Perplexity for deep research, and I'm really enjoying that as a platform for deep research, just largely because I feel like I'm getting a better quality of research back from it with a wider reference source. So for those of you who haven't used Perplexity, Perplexity basically runs on top of all the other LLM platforms, and it will choose the best platform for the tool or for the request. So it might use chat in some instances, it might use Claude in some instances, but it sits across the top of it. And it's really good for deep research because of the reasons that I said before. It does a lot of citing, and if you run, as I have, side-by-side comparisons, it's really clear that Perplexity is researching a wider field, I suppose, is how I'd describe it. So yeah. So
Sarah, can I just throw one more curveball in there?
Yeah, sorry. Sabrina's asking, am I using the paid version? I'm using the paid version for everything, Sabrina. Yes, there is a lot of subscriptions going out of my accounts at the moment. because I don't want to risk my data in any of those things. Claude, I'm on the Pro version, but I'm really worried that I'm going to max out on tokens and I'm going to end up having to pay for the max version. So anyway, we'll hope that that doesn't happen yet.
There was that thing in electric cars, which was range anxiety. So you've now created something new, Sarah, called token anxiety.
Token anxiety. I totally have it. Absolutely, Lars. Yeah, I have. In fact, so Claude, in its recent updates, it's either a recent update or I haven't noticed it before, but in Claude Code, it has a little ticker that's tracking how many tokens have been used. And you're like literally on a second by second basis watching it go up, like 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, and I'm like, wow. It's, yeah.
Just someone being new to Claude, I'd say that the one thing I'd add is the UI. So especially on a phone. So on a phone, when you're using Claude with the app, the one thing it does extremely well above ChatGPT is when you ask it for a question and they all come back and go, can you answer these 3 questions so I can help you best? ChatGPT puts it in the chat and you've got to go up and down and try and figure it out, put it down. Claude will have a pop-up box that comes up and just like a multi-selection tick box, you can sort it out that way. Just the user interface, Claude's smashing it at the moment in that respect. It just makes it so much easier to use. So I think,
the other thing I love about Claude is its transparency. When you're using Claude, it's actually rather than just going off and doing the task, it's actually telling you what it's doing. And so you can see things like, especially when you're coding, or via coding. I'm not coding. Sorry, Sabrina, I don't mean to insult you. I am not coding. I am very clear on that. My days of coding were limited to, as I said in your interview, MS-DOS, I think. Anyway, when you are working in Claude Code, it will do things like take a screenshot and assess its own work, and it's doing this in real time. You're seeing all of this happening, so you can actually watch its progress. Likewise, you can watch it literally coding and pretend that you know what it's doing. Like one of these days, I think I'm going to learn to code through osmosis, maybe if I use Claude Code enough. Maybe that's the case. Anyway, that was a long answer to a simple question.
Simple question.
I suppose what it shows, doesn't it, is just the complexity. And, if you're sitting there saying, which LLM should I use? What's the advice or anything like that? I think work with one that feels most comfortable to you. I think there's sort of 3 pots that people would generalize in terms of, ChatGPT is good for that sort of generative AI kind of piece, and most people started with ChatGPT, so there's a comfort level there. I think a lot of people would say, and this is highly controversial at the moment, but a lot of people would lean to Claude for coding. The reason that's so controversial is because ChatGPT is really improved in that area. And then I think, and we haven't even talked about Gemini either, but I think then Perplexity kind of heads the way in terms of deep research for those reasons that I said earlier. And yeah, I mean, Gemini is a really good play as well. Bryn, who we interviewed on sales, AI and sales and social selling, she was switching completely from ChatGPT to Gemini. So hopefully that gives you some ideas around where you could go. If you're not using an LLM, I think just get in and start playing with one, quite honestly. Okay, next question. In an age where any content is available to anyone, how do we use consultants like yourselves to the best advantage? Oh, there's a question and a half. Somebody's on their toes first thing in the morning. Lars, what do you think?
Yeah. No, it's a really good question. So it probably depends on the situation, right? So from a business owner point of view, it's getting that external perspective on everything, right? So they're in their own little business, they know what they know, and it's really exposing to them of, we can expose them to different scenarios and how different business owners are tackling the problem, or what they've done to solve it, or what they're doing to maximize AI in their business. So I think it's a shoulder to shoulder thing. Get next to them, chew the fat over AI and really get a larger perspective of what the risks, the benefits are, and the like. So a sounding board to start with, and then obviously depending how far they want to go, we can point them in the right direction as well, depending on what they want to achieve.
Yeah. And, I would say, this is a question that I think about a lot. Obviously, I'm thinking about the future of consulting as a owner of a consultancy. I'm thinking about the future of consulting. And I guess where I've landed, because, I do pose those hard questions to myself. And, Lance and I have had conversations around this as well, about, what is the value that we offer to our clients if everything is accessible in terms of knowledge and stuff. And I think where I've landed is there's still a place for consultants, and will continue to be so, I think, in particular in a few areas. One is, if you want to cut a check for speed, is a phrase that my American friends would use. And so cutting a check for speed looks like, yes, you can totally plug stuff into any LLM and get some answers. But one, you are going to have to discern or do some analysis on whether those answers are A, accurate, B, relevant, and C, going to get you to where you want to go, right? That's when the help or the assistance of a consultant can really help you fast track. Because we can say in a pretty rapid way, yes, that's probably going to work, this isn't. Or alternatively, we can ask you some questions that will help you gain that clarity. So I think that's a space that is definitely one. I think the other thing as well is, don't forget that an LLM is only as good as the input that you offer it. So when you are putting something into an LLM, if you're requesting something like, give me a strategy for my small Etsy business, I don't know if that's you. Give me a growth strategy for my small Etsy business. I want to grow 10% year on year, right? It's not going to give you a good answer. And unfortunately, you may look at that and go, this is a really good answer. But, you're not asking those critical questions to say, what makes it a good answer? Why do I think that that's a good answer that a consultant would normally ask? All right. Sabrina's chiming in on this one as well.
Great take. Yeah.
Here's my take. A consultant's value was never the information. Oh, you are so good, Sabrina. It's the judgment behind it. Knowing what actually applies to your situation, knowing what to do first, and why the order matters. Yes, yes, and yes. Having seen the same problem break in enough places to know where yours will break. Yes. And being the person whose name is on the recommendation, not just the person who made it. Yeah. That's super good. You've summed that up so well.
Yeah.
All right.
Did you use AI to create that answer, or was that was?
I can't imagine that Sabrina would have.
That's probably straight from the heart and the head. That was a great summary.
I was going to say that would have been. I cannot get my fingers fast enough to the keyboard, right, Sabrina?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. But that's a great question. Whoever sent that in, thank you. Okay, love to hear more on vibe coding. Had some concerns about the ongoing governance, security, maintenance of programs developed from AI app builders such as Base44. Yeah, I'm going to jump into this one straight away because there's a lot going on in this world at the moment, the world of vibe coding, and with these iterations that are kind of autonomous programs that you can put onto your system. And, we had the very famous one come out, which was ClaudeBot, OpenClaw, what else was it called? Moltbot, varying different names that it was, and people running out and buying iMac Minis to load the instance of their Claude bot onto their iMac Mini and then have it run everything. And, we've heard great stories that have come from it, but also some pretty terrible ones, including, racking up lots of credit card debt whilst the AI purchases things that it believes will help enhance its performance. So, all sorts of crazy things. And, if you're going to go to that extreme, I mean, the makers, the creators of Claude Bot have said that, there's a huge level of risk that comes with that, because you are essentially giving your passwords away, you're giving credit card information away, access to your emails. It could send whatever it wants to out to whoever it wants to. So you have to be comfortable with that risk that you're taking. So I think I said before, with vibe coding, I'm using Claude Code, and I do that for two reasons. Claude Code, as I said before, I think Anthropic as a business has time and time again proven to us that it has a very strong ethical backbone to it, even in the way that it designs as well, because the transparency, as I mentioned before, that goes on whilst you are using Claude, I think is just another example of the values that Anthropic have been built on. And so that's one of the reasons why I use Claude Code, and I use the downloaded instance. So I use it on my computer, and I have the choice of when or if I choose to share any passwords with it. I also can keep it contained within just a small set of folders, or I could give it exposure to all of the folders on my computer. And so I feel like I have a huge amount of control because of that. And so that is the reason that I use Claude Code. Did I say there was two things I was going to say there? Because now it's gone from my head. Yeah. So, and the other thing, so there's quite a few, that was the other thing. There's quite a few instances where you'll see, and Perplexity is the first time that I'm actually branching into this, instances where you'll see other software platforms that have been built on top of other LLMs, right? So, for example, Lovable is a very popular vibe coding platform, and that has been built on top of Claude. For me, I would rather go straight to, what is that saying, Lance? The horse's mouth? No.
Straight to the horse's mouth? Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I would rather go straight to the source than use something on top of it, largely because my experiences, and please chime in if anyone has a different experience, but my experience is when you're using something that's built on top of another one, they're usually a couple of iterations behind or a couple of releases behind. And sometimes they're quite slow to do all the fixes that they need to bring that release on. And usually it's running on less power, I suppose, is the best way to use that example. And just a little bit of clarity around vibe coding for anybody that hasn't heard of the phrase. Vibe coding basically is coding for people who aren't like Sabrina, who don't have data science backgrounds or computer science backgrounds and degrees, who have been coding for their whole life. And so basically you can interface with one of the LLMs, you can say what you want it to do, and it will then go and write some code on your behalf to create something that you are looking for. That's a pretty terrible description of it, but you get the idea. Do not give, hang on, Sabrina's got some very, yeah. Warnings: do not give LLM your password or access to your computer. I'm still on the fence about this. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so my downloaded instance of Claude Code has access to one folder. It's called Claude Development, and that's all it has. So if I want it to access any of my folders, I have to put it into that folder, and it can't access anything else, because I also sit on the fence a little bit, and I'm safeguarding myself. All right, Lance, have you got anything to add on vibe coding?
Yeah, you're probably ahead. I mean, what I hear on the street is that that most people are using Claude Code for vibe coding, and then they're using Codex, which is ChatGPT's version for bug fixing and the like, because apparently it's extremely good for that. So, talking about horses for courses on that, but and actually I use weirdly, you're talking about LLM stacks. I use Canva a bit for vibe coding as well for certain things. So, probably because that was the first place I could access it and see it actually happen. And I sat there in amazement watching I asked it to do something. It's writing all these lines of code. And I got to the point where I was like, I just want to see it write more code rather than actually make something that's useful for a moment. Just took me back to ZX81 Sinclair days, writing code back in the 80s. Yeah, and just happening in front of you, I'm blown away with what you can do. But it's not as easy, if you believe the ads you see on Instagram and the like around just get base 44 and put your idea in and you've got an app that's running the world, 5 minutes later. That's not the truth. There's more to it. So they're not living up to their marketing at the moment. And how, if you're using it for business use, how you're handling bug or error fixes when it's connecting into something else, and frame of references change that it's using to deliver something. So I think there's a long way to go, but it's pioneering stage. It's so much fun to be there to see this unfold.
Totally. And yeah, I mean, like, with the vibe coding that I'm doing, it's not like a 5-minute job that I'm like, let's just spin up this and oh, look, there it is, it's done. No, the first iteration is usually not flash. Maybe it's misunderstood something that I've said, or I haven't given it good instructions when I thought I had. Maybe there's bugs and errors in it. Maybe it doesn't work in the way that I thought it would, like all of those things. So there's a lot of things that need to change. And of course, if you're having it connect multiple sources of data and stuff like that, those links can break. There's just a ton of things. So yes, vibe coding is great, but it's also, can I tell you, a real huge time sucker. Ask me how I know. All right, last question. Had a scenario recently where an employee didn't want to use AI as they were afraid it would take their job. How do we overcome this? Oh, yes.
Yeah,
$1 million question. What's your thoughts, Lance?
Yeah, it is a great question. And look, the answer is it probably depends on the business and the values of that business they work in. Would be my thought. It would be, especially if you put yourself in the shoes of a team member who's probably had a job for 30 years, 20, 30 years doing the same thing, and they're asked, by their boss, oh, look, use AI, and we're thinking of ways to make this better. I mean, yeah, it's a hard one. What I would say is I've always had the mindset to embrace everything, because my thought would be, what I do is monotonous, and it could be done with AI. So let me go along with the flow, help the business do it, and then maybe I can add value across the business, helping more people do it and be part of what's happening and learn rather than be resistant. But you are going to come across it, I guess. It's a hard one to solve. I mean, you got to solve it at a business level sometimes and make some decisions around what that means, which can go a lot of different ways. And I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of restructures or realignments in the future around this sort of around the subject, and probably in a smaller sense, we saw it with the advent of computers coming in back in, was it late 80s, early 90s, when computers sort of came into the workforce. And I remember talking to people back then that I remember talking to a guy who was doing drafting, like architecture work drafting. And he was leaving work because they're about to bring computers in, and he didn't want a computer to take his job. But I guess by leaving it did. And like any technology, there are going to be people that don't want to be part of it. But I don't know if I've answered the question. It's just so complex, Sarah. There's the cultural impacts it's going to have on the business, and how the team's going to work together. There's the values of the business itself, the message it sends to the team members around what this might mean in the future, and then can we believe what they say going forward on anything else. But as a business, you've got to strive to deliver cost of doing business to your customer. Otherwise, you're going to lose the competitive edge in the marketplace. So you've got to drive towards efficiency. So you're going in that direction. What's your take? This is such a complex question to unpack.
Oh, it totally is. And it's so well timed as well, because I've been listening just recently to a couple of pieces of research that were brought out around this, and some forecasts around like how many jobs are going to be lost and those sorts of things. And so it's very topical at the moment. Chris has got a comment. If AI is positioned as a threat or boogeyman rather than the next evolution of office tools, then resistance is guaranteed. If instead the company vision and individuals' roles are positioned as being enhanced or improved, resistance will subside to some degree. Totally, Chris. I totally agree with you. And I think as well, hang on. And there's a follow-up. At the same time, the employee must be told retooling and continuous improvement are required for nearly all professional jobs. So AI is just the new one. Totally. Yeah. I think yes, absolutely, totally agree with you. And my take has been, whenever I've come up against this question, and it is a fair concern for people, but here's the thing that I also know to be true at the same time, is there are so many people out in the workforce right now that just don't get time to get to all of the tasks that they have to do, that they're responsible for. There's an unprecedented level of workplace stress because people are just overwhelmed and overworked. And so when you come at it from this angle of how might we use AI as a partner in the work that we're doing to help offset some of that time where you're doing perhaps repetitive tasks that AI could undertake for you, or help to even just streamline and speed up some of those tasks that are kind of more boring and mundane tasks that are part of your role. And then the question becomes, and what does that make you free and available to do? And I think that now repositions it, rather than from something that's been taken away to something that's been made possible. And I think that's a much more powerful stance for organizations to take. For example, some of the organizations I'm working with at the moment, we're asking questions like, what's now possible in terms of how we can enhance our customer experience, because we actually have time capacity to be able to do those things. What could we do to enhance our customer experience? What could we do to create more of a competitive edge against our competitors, because now we have the time available to do some of these things? And there's a long laundry list for most organizations of, here's all the things we'd love to do, but we just don't have the time or capacity to do those things. And so, yeah. Oh, hang on, Chris. I'm going to show your comment, because he says Sarah raised a key point. So, let's just stop right there. If AI is positioned as another thing I've got to learn, then it won't be welcomed. If it is positioned as taking on the mundane stuff, it will be welcomed by many people. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things that we have in our day-to-day roles. For example, AI has really transformed how I relate and interact with emails, for example, right? Like a lot of those pieces I'm leaving this on the screen for a long period of time, just then everyone can let this sink in. Sarah raises a key point. No, I'm kidding. Holly, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you with us. Okay, so a couple of things that we just want to round out this call with, and that is a couple of things. I have already said to you, I've got an invitation for people on the call, but Lance, you've got a couple of things that you want to just make people aware of as well. Yep.
Yeah. So with the voice AI work I've been doing around AI receptionists, after hours or during hours calls, I've now got a landing page up and going. So we're just going to throw that out there for everyone to go have a look. You can go on, you can see a recording of a call, see how it works. You can go do some live calls. And if you want to have a chat, there's a form there to fill out and have a discovery around your business and what we might be able to do for that. And even if there's anyone on the call that's going, I just want to know more, and I might have some customers that might be interested, and I just want to get up to speed with voice AI, reach out, love to have a chat. And we'll have to keep it, we'll have to time box it, because it comes to voice AI. You can have a deep conversation for a very long time on that. So what's the best way, Sarah? We're going to put the link there. We're going to share it afterwards with everyone.
Put the link into the chat now, Lance, if you want. And then, that's probably the easiest way. Then it will be up on the recording easily. Cool. So if you're interested in voice AI in any of its forms, then jump on and have a chat with Lance. He has been working heavily with, deeply with a few organizations getting their voice AI activated, and has just had, you've been on such a steep learning curve, haven't you, Lance?
I just love the learning on that whole, and actually I think it was Holly or someone earlier mentioned around knowledge bases. You've really got to nail the knowledge base of the organization so you can draw on that information and maximize the use that a voice AI can bring to a business. So there's so many dimensions to it. Yeah, the learning's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then I've been delving into the world of AI literacy. So how that, I became very passionate about this idea of having AI capability framework, to use some terms from the L&D world, and developing the capabilities around AI within organizations. And, how does an organization access that? And so I did my due diligence, went out, took a look at what is out there and available, and felt like there's some good bits and pieces around the place, but nothing that to me really answered the questions and the challenges that I felt like certainly my clients and many other businesses are facing. And so I have undertaken to develop a new program, and we still don't have a name for it. We have the outlines, we have some of the pieces already built out, and I'll show you a couple of them in a second. But the premise of the program is to develop an organizational-wide foundation and capability around AI. So that's the premise. So I have an invitation for you today, and that is, if you are interested in being part of our pilot program, I am looking for a few businesses. Ideally, I'd love you to have a head count of 20 or more. That would make it a good cross-reference. But I'm looking for a group of businesses to be able to work with to finesse the pilot that we have put together. So there'll be a little bit of co-creation in there. We'll have a request for a lot of feedback from what you're experiencing. But that is what we're going to do. If this is something that you're interested in, then reach out to me, and we can have a call and have a chat about what that would entail. There will be a cost associated to it. It's still a fully formed course. I'm looking for a pilot and pilot people because I want to make sure to test and iterate the course. We will be releasing the course once we've gone through the pilot and made any of those iterations. We will be releasing the course to the general public as well. But I want to do this pilot just to make sure that, you know, I'm not stuck with designing at the whiteboard. So this is a phrase that I use from my instructional design space, and that is, you know, like I'm in my own little ecosystem designing away. I need to make sure that this is what businesses are looking for. It's certainly what I've observed. So I wanted to show you just quickly, I'll show you a little iteration of what is in the program. What we've created, and this is vibe coding. Can you see that, Lance?
I haven't seen anything come up yet.
Hang on, let's see.
Something's happening.
Something's happening.
Anticipation is growing.
Far out. Is it sharing? Here we are. Add to stage. There we go. Right, here we are. Sarah just needs to get the technology. Okay, so this is something that we have created. We wanted to be able to, in this program, create instances of people getting an experience of interacting with AI models, but not having them have to have subscriptions to them, for example, and certainly having them have a more of a sandbox kind of situation, so it's a safe space for them to practice. So this is an example of an iteration that we've created. This is around a simple prompt engineering exercise, but basically here's step one. It shows you, here's a vague prompt that some person might put, and here's kind of the garbage output that you get from the AI. And then now you're applying the skills that you've learned in the program to write a better prompt. It's got a little hint section. You put your prompt in here, and you will start to see the output appear as you type. And then you actually submit that, and you'll get feedback from the this instance of the AI to tell you how you might improve that. And this is kind of stage one, and it goes all the way through on a whole lot of prompting. So we've got a lot of these sandboxes, as we like to refer to them, or as the cool kids say. I just love the idea of a sandbox because I used to have so much fun in a sandbox. Anyway, we've got a lot of these sandboxes all the way through the program because we really want to make sure that people have a safe space to be able to test and practice the things that they're learning and put them into applications so then they can see how they work. So that's just a little example for you of what is in the program. Right, now I need to remove this. So yeah, as I say, if that's something that you are interested in being part of the pilot, then please reach out to me. You can DM me on any of the platforms, or you can simply send me an email, and we can set up a call to discuss what that would mean. Just a couple of logistics around the program. We're anticipating that it's going to be about 6 weeks long, but that will depend as well on kind of how people consume the information. So that's, I think we've answered all the questions, Lance. We did well. Did go over
great
time.
Questions too.
Yeah, they were great questions. Thank you so much, everybody. The other good news is, watch this space. We will be reaching out to you because Lance and I have already committed to another series. It'll be a winter series rather than a summer series. So we're anticipating it's probably going to be released around about July. So again, if you have things that you want to hear more about, you want us to interview on, let us know, because we are at the moment talking to people about the next round of people that we want to interview. And so, yeah, if there's anything pressing for you, we're happy to do the investigative research on your behalf. All righty. So that wraps us up.
Awesome.
Thank you everyone for joining us. It has been a pleasure to have you on the live stream today. And wherever you are in the world, have a good evening, a good afternoon, or a good morning, won't you? See you later.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being part of our journey.